My husband hired a hitman to get rid of me and take all my money. Days later, I faked my own death, and he never imagined what I was capable of doing to get revenge for all his malice. Naomi Vance stepped out of the high-rise building of her prominent downtown law firm with a powerful sense of accomplishment. She had just won a major corporate case, one that guaranteed her more prestige and a substantial year-end bonus. Around her, colleagues congratulated her, but their applause felt distant, almost hollow. A practiced smile stayed on her face, but inside, something felt off. Her thoughts drifted toward Julian, her husband. In recent months, he had become a stranger. That night, Naomi arrived home earlier than usual. The elegant brownstone in Buckhead was unusually quiet. The lights were on, but Julian wasn't in his usual place. His sport coat rested on the sofa. A half-finished glass of whiskey sat on the table. "Julian," she called. He appeared from the kitchen, perfectly dressed as always, but something in his expression made her uneasy. "You're home early," he said. "I thought we could have dinner together, like old times." Julian paused for a moment, then smiled. "Sure," but the smile didn't reach his eye. They ate in front of the TV that night. Naomi tried to keep the conversation alive. "How's the Onyx Lounge doing?" she asked casually. "It's fine," Julian replied without looking at her. "People always find something to celebrate." "You've been really busy lately. I barely see you." Julian looked up for a brief moment. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, then disappeared. "You know how it is." Naomi nodded, but she didn't believe him. After dinner, Julian went to the bedroom. Naomi stayed behind, pretending to work on her laptop. But her attention shifted to his phone, lying on the table. She knew the passcode. There had been a time when they shared everything. She unlocked it. Scrolling through messages, one conversation caught her attention. "All set for tomorrow, remember. There can't be any mistakes." Naomi's heart began to race. She quickly put the phone down when she heard his footsteps. "Still working?" Julian asked from the doorway. "Yeah, just a few things," she replied calmly. But inside, everything had changed. Days later, during a dinner with friends, Naomi noticed something else. Julian stepped aside to talk privately with a man. From a distance, Naomi watched as the man handed him an envelope. Julian slipped it into his jacket, quickly. On the drive home, she couldn't stay silent. "What was that about?" she asked. "Club business," Julian replied coldly. "Nothing important." That was the moment Naomi felt it clearly. Something was wrong. That night, while Julian slept, his phone lit up again. Another message. "Don't fail." Fear settled deep inside her. But Naomi didn't confront him. She needed proof. The next morning, she made a decision. She hired a private investigator, Darius Stone. Days later, Darius handed her a report. Inside were photographs. Julian, meeting a man in a dark alley behind his nightclub. The man looked dangerous. His name was Duke Miller, a known criminal linked to extortion and disappearances. Naomi's hands trembled as she read further. There were also financial records, large transfers sent by Julian to unknown accounts. Everything pointed to one terrifying truth. Her husband wasn't cheating. He was planning something far worse. He was planning to kill her. Naomi felt her world collapse, but she didn't panic. Instead, she went to the police. Detective Marcus Jones listened carefully as she placed the evidence on his desk. "This is serious," he said, "but we need more." Together they formed a plan, a dangerous one. They would fake Naomi's death and catch Julian in the act. Days later, everything was ready. A quiet road outside the city, a wrecked car, blood on the ground, hidden cameras. Naomi lay there, motionless, pretending to be dead. Then they called Julian. Minutes later, he arrived. He stepped out of his car slowly. He didn't run. He didn't panic. He just stood there, looking at her body. And then he smiled. "So I didn't have to lift a finger after all," he whispered. Every word was recorded. Julian pulled out his phone. "It's done," he said. "Now we just wait." That was enough. Within seconds, police surrounded him. He was arrested. As officers moved in, Naomi slowly opened her eyes and stood up. Julian's face turned pale. You trapped me," he shouted. Naomi looked at him, calm but broken inside. "No, you did this to yourself." But the truth didn't end there. During the investigation, something even darker came to light. Duke wasn't acting alone. There was a network, a powerful one. And then came the biggest shock of all. One of the names connected to the network was Naomi's stepfather, Clayton Albright, an influential businessman, respected, powerful, and completely involved. Naomi could barely breathe. But what came next was even worse. Her mother was involved too. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else. But Naomi didn't stop. She testified in court against all of them. The recordings, the messages, the transfers, everything was presented. The truth was undeniable. Julian was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Duke received 25 years. Clayton Albright got 30 years. And Naomi's mother was sentenced as well. Justice had been served. But Naomi had lost everything. Her husband, her family, her past. Months later, Naomi began to rebuild her life. She left her old career behind and started a foundation to help victims of betrayal and abuse. One day, she received a letter from her mother. "I don't expect your forgiveness, but I hope you live a full life." Naomi read it quietly, then placed it aside. She didn't know if she could forgive her, but she knew one thing: she had survived. And sometimes, survival is the greatest revenge.